climbing of rocks. You, go climb that rock. No, not now. Wait until the video's over. Because over the past few months, I have become obsessed with rock climbing. If I'm not making a video, I'm climbing a rock. And since I am really stupid, I thought, hey, Skyrim, that's a game with a lot of rocks. So, today, let me take you throughout all of Skyrim to show you its coolest climbing spots, teach y'all some about rock climbing, and maybe even get you a little local history too. And to show you how good Skyrim is for rock climbing, let's start off with Falkreath Hold. From the moment you step out of the cave leading out of Helgen, you can tell this is going to be a sick place for rock climbing. As a forest basin surrounded by mountains on all sides, eons of tectonic forces have perfectly molded it for climbing. And aesthetics too. Which, fun fact, cool looking rocks, often very cool to climb. Like this cool rock to the left. It has one of the two types of climbing that we'll be talking about today, bouldering. That's when you climb a boulder-sized rock, like these. This one's my favorite right here. So you would start with Hold on. You want flexible clothes that can move when you're climbing, so these are my climbing clothes. Like I said, gotta be able to move. But I feel like my hair's getting in the way, so there we go. As I was saying, you start with that. And then you move up along this ridge that is like a sloper. Make sure you keep your arms straight when you're climbing, and you want to really be walking up the wall with your feet. And to let you know, undercling, you cling under, and a sloper, the rock is sloped. Climbing terms are pretty easy. They're usually what exactly they sound like they are. That or they're French. I don't like slopers personally. But what I do like is this overhang above. Because to climb this, you need to start by grabbing this tiny little ledge and putting your feet in these indentations. Make your way up and to the right next. From there, shimmy your way up to this crack, then get your feet over here, step up, and you're done. And I'm gonna count that as the first descent, because as far as I can tell, no one has really decided to make a video on rock climbing in Skyrim, which is shocking. Also, you can't press spacebar a bunch to climb up it. I'm so excited for those comments. But since I was the first to climb it, I get to name and grade it. And I'm naming this route Escape. And as far as the grade goes, let's get into that. There are a few different systems for grading bouldering. There's the French one developed in Fontainebleau, which is used like all over the world and stuff. But I don't personally speak European, so let's use an American language system, the American V scale. For that, the grades they go like this. V0 to V1, you're in your intro to climbing. V2 to V3, you're getting better. V4 to V6, that's intermediate. And V7 to V8, advanced. And past that, you're kind of just a genetic freak. Especially if you're climbing something like a V17. You're just not human. But that scale is kind of the indoor climbing grades for it. Outdoors, they're pretty much always going to be harder at the equivalent grade. So just translate like this. The jacked people of Skyrim, they could likely already climb a V1 to 3 outdoors just because they're so muscular, but, they don't have any technique. So with all that in consideration, I'm giving Escape a grade of a V10. You gotta know your shit to climb. It takes technique, and it's tall as hell. Let's take our reference Lord John Skyrim III. He's roughly 6 foot, and it's gonna take 8 of him stacked to reach the top of it. That's roughly 50 feet of climbing straight up. Stamina's running out on this highball. A highball, that's a high boulder, and if you fall without a rope very high up, you do die. Typically, you want to fall from boulder height onto a crash pad. Now, a few easier climbs are around the area as well, like over each ridge as you head towards the lake. There's this fun overhang and Tallow Send. Send, by the way, is when you actually complete it, and these guys, they didn't send it. That's pretty embarrassing for you. You can't just have a spotter. we literally just talked about crash pads. Oh, that's so embarrassing for you guys. I wouldn't want to be you. But once we get away from those two and explore more of the hold, we find climb after climb. And since it's really hot in here for recording, why don't you guys listen to accomplished YouTuber, Casual Guy, explain a little bit about his favorite climbing spot in Falkreath.
Just off the main road west of Lakeview Manor, tucked behind the trees, you can find a truly insane boulder. This boulder I have dubbed Leader of the Pack. And I called it that because there's a group of wolves that live in this cave, and if you want to climb the climb, you're gonna have to murder them. You're gonna have to kill this family of wolves. Yep, that's right, you have to end the lives of innocent animals if you want to climb here. And yes, it will affect the overall grade of this climb. The boulder itself is an incredibly aggressive overhang. It's in a cave. And I'm assuming it would require a sit start, something along the lines of this. Then you would make your way up the boulder in this direction, using all these very slight cracks and crimps in the rock.
A crimp is a little hold you gotta do like this for. And a jug? That's like the handle of a milk jug. You grab it like that.
I think using a combination of using precise footwork on the left side while also using a lot of heel hooks on the right side, that would be your approach to get up here. The final top-out section of the boulder is much more generous with the handholds, but getting from these overhanging crimps to that section would require a lot of power and a lot of stamina. If I was to grade this climb, just based on the fact of how much stamina and finger strength you would need to accomplish this climb, as well as the fact you're going to run out of stamina after you're done killing a pack of wolves, I'd go for a strong V12. And you can take that with a grain of salt because I climb at like V5, I don't know what I'm talking about. And also this is Skyrim, it's not real. You can't climb it.
Ooh, damn. He's kinda good at that. Y'all should listen to him yap after this. And I gotta make sure I'm doing as good as that as well. So, I'm gonna do that by talking about Falkreath, because this is a town surrounded by cliffs that is perfect to climb in. Like this rock right over this little pond, I'd say that's kinda gonna be your beginner boulder for the town. You're not gonna get attacked by wolves here, and the routes, they're either short climbs on the right side of it, where you start with solid hands and footholds, or you got to do the fun thing and you get to go up top and kind of shimmy across. I'd say V2 or 3. It looks doable to me. Let's call this route John Skyrim. And also, establishing this area as a climbing spot would really help with the local economy too. The general store could sell things like crash pads, chalk, shoes, rope, whatever gear you need. Chalk, that would come from over in Bretonland, that's where it is in real life. And the rubber for the shoes, you could get that from somewhere like Blackmarsh. As far as the leather on them goes, that could be done in Cyrodiil. So, it's really fostering relations here. And you could do that further by publishing a guidebook that talks about all of this and sell it to those rich Colovian kids across the border. Personally, I'd have Casual Guys sell it to them a little bit like this.
Just east of the entrance of Falkreath, you can find this incredible two-tiered wall. Look at it, it's just beautiful, isn't it? Two overhanging climbs connected by a ledge in between. Now, this isn't a specific boulder that I found, but I just think this wall in general is really interesting and you could make up a lot of climbs using this wall. What I love about parts of this is that it's not an incredibly aggressive overhang, but all the holds look incredibly crimpy. It's like using a training board but in the wild. Look how fun this looks. I'm just a big fan of how many different routes you could come up with this wall. Like if you wanted to, you could do this incredibly slopey overhang over on this side, and then once you're up on the ledge, you could then shimmy your way to the other side and then use this crimped overhang. Like, you could go other way. There's so many options, so much variety. You could train so much here. I love it. I love this wall. This wall's great. Shout out this wall. There's just a lot of variety with this wall, and to be honest, anywhere in Falkreath you could climb. Like, there's so many good climbs. If I lived in Skyrim and I wanted to climb, I would live here because there's just so much to do. I don't have a name for this climb or any specific climb here, but I wanted to name the wall, and I thought I would name it the Wheelie Good Wall, because if you look behind you right now, yeah, there's the wheel for the sawmill, and it's right here, so I thought that was a kind of fun name, and yes, that's the best I've got. Anyway, bye!
Thank you very much for that, Casual. You are an excellent salesman on climbing. Again, watch his stuff when you're done here. But back to this guidebook. The real highlight of it would be on Lake Ilantala. Right up front, cool boulder. On the lake, more cool boulders. Deep water solo boulders. Not even gonna explain that term to y'all. Use some context clues, because it's fucking sick. So by this point, you should be pretty convinced Falkreath is really cool for climbing. Climbing hobos, tech bros, and trust fund kids, they're gonna agree and they're gonna flood the place, which is economics, I guess. Wish they would do economics on my Buy Me a Coffee page or sign up for my YouTube membership. Either way would really help me out, because I have no money. What was I talking about? Climbing. On the other side of this lake, past the mountains, there is a special little spot for climbing. And that is Bloated Man's Grotto. Only a few wolves, bears, spriggans, and a few other things that you have to kill first. But once you do, ooh, you are rewarded. This is packed with climbing. The entrance. Go over it before topping out. Do this sick overhang above this creek. This one, it's gonna be hard. And what if you don't want to do bouldering today? Well, that's one of the perks of being surrounded by cliffs. You can climb those cliffs. There are a few different styles of climbing you could do for that, but let's talk about lead climbing and top rope. For both of them, you're gonna be putting on a harness like this. Then you're gonna put a rope through the hard point on the harness and tie a figure 8 knot to keep yourself secure. Next up is the belayer. Get them a harness. Then they're gonna attach a belay device like a gree to their harness. What it does is it acts as a friction brake. It allows the belayer to tighten or loosen the slack on the rope really quickly, because if you fall, you kind of want that control. But you're gonna need some between you and your belayer. This is where top rope and lead climbing differentiate. See, in lead climbing, you're gonna have all these quick draws hanging all from you. It clips into the bolts that are secured into the wall. Then you're gonna take your rope and put that through the other side of it. Stopping to do this correctly each time, it's gonna take effort and coordination, and it's not something that you wanna mess up on, because you could die if you do. But with top rope, you don't have to worry about this. Well, you do have to worry about falling still, but instead of the rope being clipped in repeatedly, it's gonna run through the anchor bolts up top, with you on one side and your belayer on the other, so you just get to focus on climbing. You don't gotta stop and do that. Let's go ahead and take a look at this route for an actual example of sport or lead or whatever you wanna call it today. So start with your hands on these crimps. Move the left one up to this bit that looks like it already has a little bit of chalk on it. Then grab onto the bottom of this bit that sticks out and use the right side to get up. From there, it's a few crimps and a sloper up top. Then you've topped out and you're done. Well, you haven't topped out because that's topping out. You sent it, but you're done. And like earlier, we get to name and grade our route. That does bring up the grading system for this. Once again, there is an amazing American system, the Yosemite Decimal System. There are a few more, like, Japanese, then the British. They rate the danger as well, which is weird. With the Yosemite Decimal System, it's gonna work like this. The first number, it's gonna be the class. 1, that's a hike. You keep going up, you move through scrambles, you get to a 5, that's where you start rock climbing. And then the number after the decimal, that's gonna be the difficulty. Goes all the way from, I believe, 1 to 15. Then after 10, you start adding A, B, C, or D to add more nuance. And with all of that said, I'm naming this climb Wolf Bulge, on account of the bulge and the wolves. And for the grade, honestly, I got no idea. I've only climbed outdoors a top rope 5.7, so anyone who's actually, climbed those grades outdoors and is watching this, please help. I'm just gonna say 5.9. That's Bloated Man's Grotto, which is obviously getting an inclusion in the Skyrim climbing guide. Yet outside in the tundra, one might not expect the guidebook to really mention anything. Well, you're wrong, because if there's a rock, I'm including. And all the rocks that I'm including in this, they're pretty much going to be bouldering, on account of it being a tundra with no cliffs. There are some good spots along the river, and along the many hills that dot the area, like the hill that Whiterun sits on top of. which Whiterun is actually a bit special because unlike all the other hills, it has more than one spot to actually climb. There are these cool rocks out front. It may cause a little bit of traffic, but whatever. And then out back, there's this cave. Y'all know this was here because I legitimately have no memory of this cave, which is impressive. But the bandits here, they're clearly trying to claim the first ascent, so murder them and take it for yourself. Oddly, Skyrim doesn't tell you which climb they were trying to do, so we gotta make that up ourselves, which is weird. Let's say we'll go with this ledge that you gotta get up to that's gonna be involved. We'll have you start down here, but how do you get between them? How do you do this crux, which is the hardest move of the route? Well, you jump. You get to throw yourself around while climbing on rocks. That is my intended beta, which is the correct way to climb something, which can also be broken if you know a better way to climb it. Now to actually do it, you're gonna start with one foot on this crack and your hands up here. From there, you're gonna rock back and forth to get a little bit of momentum, then use your right leg to essentially step upwards, and then as you reach the top of that, you're gonna take a little bit of a leap. And congratulations, you just did a V4 dyno that we're calling Sneaky Hop. And a dyno that's a dynamic move that involves jumping or throwing yourself around, which is in contrast to static climbing. That's where you're just like, but when you are throwing yourselves around on a rock, it is a good idea to know what kind it is. Because, you know, say it's a sandstone and you fling yourself on it and it just snaps off and you hit your head and die. That's not good. Also, different types of rock, they're gonna feel and behave differently after getting wet. Some of them can be actually good to climb on in that. But figuring all that out would actually take its own video. I tried to do it. It took me like a day, and all I got was it's sedimentary rock from an old seabed with some metamorphic rocks scattered throughout, but it's more complicated than that. So for now, let's just say it's good enough, because that's more fun. Kind of like how the Skyforge looks really fun to climb. Falling in lava, that's gonna get you a bit of motivation to send that eagle. The companions, they also have down below some nice bouldering. And the climbing near Whiterun doesn't really stop because right out back there's one more hill, or I guess the start of the mountains, I don't really know. But it has a nice climb that I'm calling Saber Cat. And that's because with the other rock behind it, it looks like some fangs of a saber cat. And say, hey, you're here, you've done all the bouldering, you don't want to do it anymore. You really want top rope or lead or something. Well, I got you. We got these cliffs, so you at least get one spot in the guidebook. But you could make the argument that these cliffs, they're not really part of the Whiterun climbing area, and really it's the start of the climbing guide's next zone, which if we follow the river east, we come along the biggest cliffs in all of Skyrim. This zone is the East March and Rift border. In the western half, waterfalls have cut through the rock to leave behind absolute monsters of climbs. Like this one right here, Blackwater. That's gonna take about 50 John Skyrims to do this entire climb. That is a whole football field up. So since you can't climb that in one rope, this is going to be a multi-pitch route. When you add like 6 or 7 roughly multi-pitches, you should be climbing essentially a big wall then. But Skyrim doesn't have any big wall climbing. A good example is El Cap in Yosemite. That's a big wall climb, but it looks like that would be difficult to execute in an open world PS3 game like Skyrim. Actually, Tears of the Kingdom, now that'd be a perfect game to look at a big wall climb. Let's see how this one does. But in the meantime, let's look at this climb, because right away you're gonna wanna notice a few things. Namely, there's a lot of water. That's gonna make it hard to climb. To account for all this water, you're gonna start in this kind of corner here. When rocks meet in this way, that's called a dihedral. And a dihedral, that is my favorite kind of climb. To do this, you're essentially gonna kind of push out, which is called stemming, and you're gonna like move yourself up that way. It feels like it's fake rock climbing, but it's not. After the dihedral, head up to this light gray rock and then hop on the ledge. At this point, you're gonna clip into the anchor bolts and you belay your belayer. When they get up here, you're gonna climb up and then you're gonna belay your belayer again. Sometimes you don't have a ledge to stand on either, So you just gotta belay while, leaning into the rock, which is, very terrifying to me if you can hear it in my voice. Climbing outdoors, man, it's scary. But for this next section, it's a bit less scary because you'll notice that it's way less steep. Now that is going to get it graded as a class 3 or 4 scramble on this section. After you climb that, you have one more wall to go, then you go along this ledge, and you just send that peak. Super cool, super long route. Let's say 511A and a sick addition to the guidebook. Now, if the idea of climbing next to torrents of water isn't your favorite idea for whatever reason, you can always head up them and go to Ivor's Head instead. Because that is going to be where I think they should really specialize in trad climbing. Trad, that's essentially another kind of sport climbing where you put your own protective equipment into the rock. I know that had to get a few people. It's not the same kind. Trad climbing developed before sport climbing. Sport climbing came out of it because they said, hey, nuts and camming devices don't really look safe to fall on. I kind of want something secured into the walls so I don't die. And the trad climber said, oh, what are you, some kind of little baby? Oh, I don't like dying. So they went around clipping their bolts. It's more cool nowadays though, but it's terrifying stuff nonetheless still to me. So let's get away from this a little bit and talk about the rest of the reach, because there are a few good spots for climbing, like these cliffs at the first bend after Lake Gear, the big rock up here. Also, what a cool shot. The cliffs at this Imperial camp, the rocks at this dwarf place, the cliffs at this orc place, this pile of rocks, the cliffs up to this dragon place, the super cool rocks at Broken Helm Hollow, the cliffs at Riften out in front, and lastly, shockingly, Boulder Fall Cave. Congrats to the Necromancer for, sending that. You do sometimes see a little flag on top of a little climb. It's also in different mountains, so, I guess that's their little local climbing marker. There's your little history. Maybe the Necromancer, I think they dinoed across the door, then grabbed onto here and dinoed across to set the flag. And I'm imagining all of their dinos were laches, and that's where you use your arms to essentially swing yourself instead of using your legs. Or they walked up it like a little coward. I hope not. So there's all of that and more in the reach. I'm not sure what percent of it is bouldering, but it seems to be fairly even in the percent. And overall, it feels like a bit of a different Falkreath. You trade out the deep water solos for a few roped climbs, and you also trade out the Colovian money for the House Whiterun money, which, would they donate to my Buy Me a Coffee? No, they would actually follow my Twitch and make sure to join my Discord so they get notified of any stream early, so that way they can insult me there. Their hatred is efficient, just like how I'm going to be efficient when talking about today's sponsor. I don't have a sponsor, I'm poor. Instead, I'll efficiently talk about climbing any of the mountains in Skyrim. When you climb mountains, you're either alpining, mountaineering, ice climbing, mixed climbing, or some other kind of climbing like that. These are all separate topics that I do not personally know enough about. I would have to look up a lot, and that'd be a whole separate video. Let me just say, ice climbing, you use crampons and an ice hook, or ice pick, or whatever it's called, and you got this cool move called a figure 4. That's where they put the tool in the hole, and then they use their arm like this, so that way they can hang and do another one. It's really hard to explain, but it's super cool. You don't do it in rock climbing. So that's all the guidebook would say about all of these areas. Instead, I think the Skyrim rock climbing guidebook, it would next move on to arguably the home of Skyrim's most dangerous climbs, the Reach. And it might start talking about it a little bit like this. While the dwarves and ancient Nords of Skyrim cowered beneath mountains, we climbed their peaks, not for any noble pursuit, but because we can. The tectonic collisions that run along the southern half of Skyrim come to a crux in the Reach. The Karth River has carved out sharp canyons, full of sport climbing routes. And this is what makes it truly special. From the dramatic ascents that signal the beginning of the reach at Bard's Leap summit, to the walls leading out to Solitude and Whiterun, along every road and every trail in the reach, you can find a climb. Even the Dragonborn Temple in the Karthspire, it has climbing. Climbing that lets you bypass all of their stupid puzzles. Do you guys really think I'm going to run across a floor that shoots fire instead of doing like, I don't know, 5 or 10 bouldering moves to get up here? Obviously I'm climbing because once I climb up, I get more climbing in the next room because it's surrounded by rocks. You are spoiled for choice here. I particularly like the idea of starting on this roof and then you go up to this point here. That one looks a little hard. But back outside, there is also a sick rock at Purewater Run that goes across the stream. You don't get a lot of spots in Skyrim where rocks, they kind of connect like this over your head. It seems like most of the time they just are a pre-made cave, a rock bridge, or just some kind of one scaled up if it's over your head. And I guess that's just Skyrim's geography, I mean, hey. But other than that, there is this little Daedric cave. I like the idea of doing the right wall first, then the roof before topping out. Or just do random sick dinos on it. That sounds good. But you do need to make sure you don't die to the Forsworn out here. That is a real hazard. So, to make sure we avoid this hazard, let's go to the town of Mark, where... well, I guess you get killed here too. At least you can climb here. And a few of the climbs that the guidebook would highlight might go a little like this. Step into Markarth and face the rocks under the Tower of Dibella. There's also these massive climbs right here. I believe it's above the jail. Or, even better than this, head to the very back right next to this door. From there, climb up to this ledge and then continue by going upside down and then around the ledge, and then the rest, it's pretty easy. But say that's not dangerous enough for you. Well, then I got a roof climb for you where you ascend to this next section, which does look like it's a bit choss. And choss, that's gonna be like loose rock that might break off, so you wanna be extra careful when you're climbing it. And for the last climb that the guidebook would highlight, you're gonna head right up next to this waterfall. And while the climb itself might look a little bit simple, the view is arguably one of the best in all of Skyrim, and if only the outside world loaded. Then we could head back out there to find another civilized spot for climbing in the Reach, this orc settlement. And I know that they're just placed alongside mountains, but it's really fun to imagine Malakath, he demands them to do sick dinos and crazy sins. Like the sickest sin in all of the Reach, Dragon Tooth Crater. A massive 200-foot overhang. Start on this slab wall with tiny little cracks to grab onto. Then, climb up using the right side. From there, use the large scar to get about here. Notice the lines, they change direction around here. That's gonna make this a lot harder. All of the holds are gonna become side crimps. So, use those to climb up both of these overhang sections, with the second one being even more steep. Once that's done, you are rewarded with this weird looking little crevice. For that, you get a Gaston. I love just saying like, I'm gonna Gaston that. And a Gaston, that's where you're doing like this to hold against, push outwards. You're pushing outwards on it. But once you do that, and you do this little shit up top, you've climbed a 513B. That is a demanding climb. But how hard is it compared to the hardest climbs in the world? Well, it's gonna come down to a lot of the hand and footholds for that. And on the hardest climbs like Silence, they're all going to be facing in the wrong direction. So whenever you put your body on them and try and stay on the rock, you're just gonna want to fly off. But still, this is crazy hard, and it's a crazy cool sight. I really love how the plants are growing all over it, and the mist that surrounds it. I don't really know if I've ever paid attention to it before this, which, I don't know how. It really does stand out now that I'm looking at it, which leads me to my next point. One other thing that I cannot not notice now are the rocks of Skyrim, because I keep seeing the same ones over and over, and particularly this guy. He shows up a lot for any of the overhangs or dinos that I like to talk about, and I'm not saying that this is at all a bad thing, because it is a PS3 game, and it's not really something that you even notice unless you're making a video where you're like, oh, I'm going to stare at all the rocks in Skyrim like a weirdo. Then, yeah, you're gonna notice that. Also, there's enough variety with them, even though they're all the same texture. Plus, on top of that, you have the caves and mines where they have different kinds of rocks as well, and with how often you're going in them, it really breaks up like the visual landscape of the game, and it makes it something you don't really notice. And as far as those mines and caves and other interiors, the reason I didn't really talk about them is there are a lot of them, and they're wet. I don't know, maybe the guidebook would say like, go climb one of the massive pillars down in Blackreach. That would be a cool one. But, you know what I think the guidebook would say is a bit cooler? At the edge of Skyrim's northern snowy mountains, there sits the Winterhold cliffs. But, climbing in the cold, actually it's okay. Apparently, you don't sweat as much and there's some stuff with friction. But, snow melts and turns to water. So, I would have the mages here. They're going to use some destruction magic to, warm this whole thing up, melt off the snow, and then refreeze it. So that way, we get some excellent sport climbing cliffs on this side, but we get the real star of it, which is under the college itself. There are plenty of routes you could do on it, like the back with this overhang here, or you could traverse these different layers. That's my pick. I like that for some reason. Which one do you like? But I think this would really fix their relation with the town's common folk. The new climbing routes here, they could help revitalize the local economy. It's not just going to be like, weird wizards showing up to stay at your inn anymore. You're going to have like normal people and like strong jacked guys who are out climbing stuff. It's like the heroes of magic and might are together again or something. 4. You may even get a few military guys out here as well to do some climbing, because, we used to be a real country, and we used to climb rocks during wars. I mean, maybe not my country, I don't know, actually, but it's been done. And I think that's maybe what a lot of the Stormcloak and Imperial camps all throughout Skyrim are training for. Like this one right by the cliffs in Solitude. Now, one thing I think they may also be doing is, if they're training for rock climbing, they're probably going incognito. They're heading out to the eastern edge of the Whiterun Plains. They're climbing the cliffs out in the Morthal Swamp, and they're climbing all the ones that line the coast on all of the Solitude Hold that I can never remember the name of. And I think they're doing all of this training because, like the guidebook says, they're going to storm the Solitude Arch this way. And I think our guidebook, it would recommend it something a little like this. There are many ascents into Solitude from below. The recommended route will prove to everyone that you are a hero. Start here. Get on this roof. Climb over. Then go along the underside until you get about here. What you're going to do is you're going to jam your knee in there so you can have a knee bar. You're going to use that to hang upside down. And once you've rested, you're going to continue along this next undercling section until you're done. Once you've completed it, make sure to slit many Imperial throats. 514B. Also, that section wasn't an undercling. I just said the wrong word. But the guidebook may also say, hey, if you're a little baby and you don't want to do that and then fight in a war, you can climb up this regular section and send hundreds of babies up at once. The Imperials, they never prepare for hundreds of babies storming from below. But Okay, maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe instead, once you actually conquer Solitude, you can go and climb this. You'd also have some additional bouldering climbs at the base of it that really wouldn't serve much purpose in an invasion. It'd be funny though if some guy's just in the middle of a war just climbing on a rock. I would expect during that to see a lot of people fall from it though, which would be entertaining at least. Another entertaining thing is the bonus section in the guidebook, which is gonna have 3 areas. First, Solstheim. It has distinct basalt formations, which you should know. They're lava. Not really much special about them. You just kind of hug them to climb them and move up. So that's something. There is on the backside some stuff if you want to do ice climbing, but hey, different guidebook. Second, there's the Soul Cairn. Here, you have 0 climbable rocks. But you do have these things that I think are like natural stone. Natural, is that the right word when this place is made by some wizards who became gods? I don't know. The point is, I think they'd be fun to climb. And third, the Forgotten Vale. It's a glacial valley filled to the brim with a massive amount of climbs. Right away, awesome cliffs that just keep on going. There is this Lord of the Rings ass spider pass thing that I like. That'd be fun to jump on. Then it has canyons that are filled with these bridges that run above you. And of course, this massive cliff up to the elf temple above. Amazing climb. Amazing. But we have one final climb left. Because it's only in Sovngarde that you could expect to find the hardest and the coolest climb in all of Skyrim. The Hall of Valor Deepwater Solo. Step 1, die. Step 2, throw yourself down into the water. Step 3, lift yourself out of the fucking water. Step 4, this massive, insane overhang. Step 5, campus the entire thing. Campusing is when you only climb with your hands. Step 6, dino every single moment that you can. Step 7, I think. Send that climb. Step 10, crush 10 kegs of mead. Step 300, jump off the cliff, die, repeat tomorrow. That's a good climb. And there you have it. The first edition, essentially, of the Skyrim climbing guide, only in a video format and not as much detail as a real climbing guide, but hey, overall, we've learned Skyrim, it's a pretty damn sick place to go climb. Although there may not be as much variation as the real world with rocks, it's still pretty cool. And the local economies, they should definitely invest in it. You're gonna have a lot of cool stuff. Except when the dragons show up. That's gonna bump up the grades a bit. Instead, you guys should probably just go to regular gyms and climb instead of, I don't know what else. Just go climb, go outdoors, do cool stuff. And thank you so much to all of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee and the YouTube membership. Your support, it has meant an incredible amount to me, and it's really made me able to survive these past few months, and I can't thank you enough. And also, I can't thank Casual Guy enough. He makes really good videos. Please go and watch him, or one of mine, I guess. Bye!